if you know about the term at will, that's mostly a corporate terminology. And basically, it just means that an employer can fire you or basically just stop your employment at any moment notice without any reason. But likewise, an employee can pretty much leave at any moment from that employer without any notice, even though there's a clause to that. But that's for another conversation. What I'm saying is that for most relationships, they're pretty much the same as a lot of employment nowadays. People leave or are willing to leave relationships at any moment without any notice, without any reason. Okay. A lot of times, you don't even get to hear back from the person. You know, you don't hear from them for many reasons. And I'm trying my best to keep this as gender neutral as possible, but I do want to put some perspective into this because um, a lot of times I think in this day and age, this notion that with men, they it's not that they don't like marriage, they fear divorce. I think it's getting to the point where courting can also be thrown into the conversation. Like this idea of just having a relationship or even more so just courting. Because I really believe that one just saying having a relationship, that's a pretty blanket, broad statement. Um, Especially here at this channel where I don't believe that relationships exist by themselves. There are basically different types of relationships. And of course, courtship is one of those type of relationships. The preliminaries, if you know what I mean. And that's where a lot of us are stuck at with most of our connections. We're stuck at the preliminary level of even getting into a courtship. Most of us haven't even gotten to that point of getting into a courtship. Love is about living, it's about life, right? So most relationships being at will doesn't represent life, it represents death, you know. So so if you think about it, most of the times you're getting with somebody, there's just going to be this aspect of separation that's going to eventually take place. So in many ways, a lot of the future of certain connections, not saying all, is going to be mostly as what one would say black pilled or pretty much pump and dump. But everybody's doing the pumping and dumping. And I've talked about this before, but basically, people that aren't in long term relationships, you're part of what I talk about with this at will aspect. You're just another pump and dumper. You're not staying with that person for the long term. You found the reason to leave them. The way a lot of this works is with some guys that act like gals per se, typical males that aren't men acting like typical females that aren't women. They'll be quick to leave the relationship just based on how they feel. Yes, a guy that has a lower feminine energy, like a typical female that already has a lower feminine energy, they are one and the same. So there's really no real explanation that needs to be said about a guy that leaves a relationship. He doing basically what a lot of these gals do. This gets deep, and I'm not going that deep, but I just want to give y'all kind of a parameter of stuff because at will relationships, what I mean by this is people leave very constructive relationships, like relationships where it takes y'all having to build. People are quick to leave those, but people love to thrive in destructive environments, toxic environments where there is no growth. Where I'm going with this basically is, yeah, a lot of us can't even talk about marriage. We can't even talk about relationships. None of that. Because most of us are quick to leave them anyway. Most of us are quick to leave. Real men aren't quick to leave. Real women aren't quick to leave. But at the same time, sometimes decent people still stay in indecent situations because we're hoping something can still be built off that. But nothing's built off that because we want to go to this aspect of talking about marriage, even this idea of building up trust, all this stuff. Well, that's based on what y'all have been building, and building takes time. And I've said before at my channel, what you're building is a vision, not a relationship. The relationship is reflective of the vision. Okay. Otherwise, it's just the vision. You know, we can't talk about how we can build with each other, support each other, look out for each other if one person is quick to leave at any given moment without any explanation, and you're not even able to get a hold of that person somehow after they've checked out. See, you have to not get with someone that's quick to leave. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And that's why a lot of old school relationships, per se, I prefer to say unions overall, right? Because the courtship went to an eventual marriage. Like, just let's just say unions. They lasted so long because people understood the value of basically commitment. They understood that value. Like, you're not just getting with a person for no reason. And nowadays, people just get with each other for no reason. They do that. People get with each other for no reason. I want to play a few snippets because this might seem like it has nothing to do with this topic, what I'm about to play, but it actually has a lot to do with this topic because the idea of even nowadays why some people are together and why they stay together, it really has nothing to do with one's experience. It has to do with one willing to experience. Okay. That's what it is. So one that can look back and no one can tell that person nothing can basically say, hey, you and me don't have the same experience. I know what it's like to be with somebody that stayed versus all these ups and downs and, you know, all this idea that we have to have these back and forths in order to stay together. No, that creates more of an at will type of relationship. I know at any given moment, all it takes is one more disagreement or one more argument for you to check out. So, but I think this, like I said, based on what I'm about to play y'all, what I'm about to have y'all listen to, basically, this based on one person not trying to be traditional with the other person. Like, there's just certain things that you two should do and should be towards each other, per se, to keep things going. You know, based on if you are wanting to have experiences with the other person, there's certain lines you don't cross. Nobody's perfect, but you're worth it. Like, you're gonna stick it out with that person. And that's what's missing. See, people want this love to be a feeling. People wonder what makes a connection with somebody successful. Well, it just like anything that is successful in life, it takes work, it takes dedication, it takes compassion, appreciation, it takes commitment. It doesn't work when you don't want it to work, when you just quick to check out. Okay. Or just one day you wake up deciding you don't want to be with that person no more. Well, you were never with them in the first place. You just needed a reason for you not to be with them no more. We're not even together. We're not really even willing to be together, you know, whether it's based on gender war or not. Most of us have not really been having a heart for the other person. But yeah, check this out.
A lot of men don't understand that their passivity and their silence is actually more toxic to the health of the relationship than her emotional nagging and complaining, because her emotional nagging and complaining is letting her partner know, hey, we're having a problem here, or I'm having an issue here. When he's passive and doesn't speak up, he's just breeding a lot of like what I call relationship poison, and he's letting it fester in that relationship, which is why, like you were saying, a lot of times when the woman is like, oh, I don't want to be here anymore, he could be confused because it's like, well, I didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, you allowed toxicity to breed in the core of your marriage. That's what happened.
And so a lot of that sediment I've heard and hear a lot is from a lot of the modern feminine who mostly in most relationships they've had per se or courtships, they weren't long term because there was always something they felt wasn't addressed, spoke up about, expressed, all these feelings, right? So, but actually, the long term of how things remain long term is actually not based on feelings. Let's hear the other perspective of what I'm saying.
I had an older lady tell me, she's, I think, just past 40, and her husband, I think, is like in his late 30s, like maybe like 41 and 39. They've been married for a while. I was talking with her about some problems we were having in our marriage, and she said, Joyce, what it sounds like to me is that your issue is that you are married to a real man.
That's really the home run I want to hit with this particular video. Okay. So this leans into other topics that I want to bring up eventually because I'm doing a lot to take this channel to another place, another level, beyond just a lot of relationship topics that are still circulating around here in these spaces. Uh, my main thing is overall, it comes down to a woman desiring to be with a real man, per se. A real woman desiring to be with a real man, because when that happens, you don't have these issues of one feeling like they're not able to express themselves and they're not able to be what they want to be. Well, yeah, if that's the case, then you shouldn't have been with him. Okay, there's that. But when he actually has been a real man to her as she wanted, then that, like I said, all this is never an issue because a lot of the at will relationship aspect comes from when one person doesn't feel satisfied with the other person for whatever reason. And so people just choose to like leave at the drop of the hat. But that's why I want y'all to hear this other aspect of what's been said so far.
Real man is not going to be ruled by a woman. And that hit me like a ton of bricks, and it immediately came to my mind when I was reading this excerpt. When she says, don't go down the path of expressing criticism, disapproval, and an ultimate lack of acceptance for your husband because it may cause rebellion, she's telling the truth. A real man is not going to allow himself to be a pushover to the woman he has chosen.
Bingo with that aspect. A woman that he has chosen. He knows that she's not trying to make him a pushover. Therefore, there's more of this trust and there's less of this at will aspect of a relationship because of the fact that simply she doesn't have any bad intentions or bad notions about him from the start. Like she always admired him from the beginning and it shows. So there's never this disruption or this sense of disputes that tend to take place, like they say happens in relationships, because apparently this is supposed to happen. Last time I checked, a lot of people from back in the day, they don't talk about that type of stuff. Like they knew that's not going to make a relationship last. That's not going to make a union last, a marriage last per se, if there's always disputes. There's always something wrong. There's always something not right. And I lean this more towards the fact that, like I said, most men do not try to leave relationships. They stick it out. If a guy is like that, that's because he's acting no different than a typical female that's not trying to be a woman in that man's life. To me, all this is really not issues. Like she said, that the issue is
you are married to a real man.
And so it comes down to her being with a real man. That is her issue. Like she might not make it, she might not think it or may not know it or realize it. But that aspect of at will relationship is her just willing to walk away from somebody she not realizing is actually a real man. But she might see it as him being a certain way as a man. And that's far from the truth. But that's the thing. Like, as a man, fellas, you have to know when she's not accepting you, appreciating you as the real man that you are. Because yeah, a real man doesn't want a gal rolling all over him. But a lot of times you might have gals that want to have an at will relationship because she wants to see you as her equal or treat you that way. That's why she was treating you that way. Even if you're a real man, she was just trying to have you feel subjugated to her, like try to mow you down per se, whatever way, gaslighting, you name it. Like, but that's what she was doing in this at will relationship. Like I said, simply put, if a guy does that, he's just acting like a female. So that's why I'm not really explaining a lot of this from like if a gal out there be like, yo, but the guys do it too. But it's not really that much to explain. He's just acting like you. No pun intended. But that's the thing. At will relationships, it really starts with women. And what I mean by this is that ladies, or actually it finishes with women per se. You know, what I mean is, of course, those who aren't trying to be real women. She's more of a womb to a man instead of a womb to a man. Okay. Uh, if you really love him, as you say you do, you don't leave. Nobody's making you stay. Of course, nobody's making you stay. And if he loves you, he wasn't trying to make you leave either. So why did you leave? So this idea that why some gals will leave is because he's probably too much of a man for her. You know, in many ways, she just won't admit it. She won't admit that she's probably not good enough of a woman for him. That's the other thing. So at will relationships, how it's similar to employment, um, it works in a lot of different ways. I mean, a lot of ways, you know, some people are just not good enough to be in that situation. Some employers are just not good enough for you to be around. And so people will treat you accordingly. When they feel like they're not good enough for you, they'll treat you like you're not good enough for them. That's real talk. Once again, when people feel like they're not good enough for you, they'll treat you like you're not good enough for them. Yes, guys do this too, just like gals do this. Guys that are more low vibrational and they're not real men, they'll treat a gal the same way. When he's not good enough for her, he'll treat her like she's not good enough for him. And so I guess that's my whole point with this at will relationship thing, is overall with both genders. Like, if one person doesn't feel like they're good enough for you, they're going to treat you like you're not good enough for them, and they'll leave you that way. That part. Going forward, especially for the guys, you have to know if she just eventually treats you that way and leaves you that way, she was never for you to begin with. That was never your woman to begin with. She was never a part of you to begin with. She just wanted to tear a part of you. You see that? So you'll heal, you'll be fine, you'll get through it, but you'll know next time she got to value you as the real man that you are. But yeah, people, I just think in ladies, like for the ladies that understand and value the essence of a real man, and you know that's what it takes for you to be with him, uh, shout out to y'all. Much love to y'all. You know, you are meek, humble. You don't try to overtalk him. You don't yell at him. You listen. You're not quick to react and to talk. You know, you do all those beautiful things. You don't be feeling like he doesn't hear me out. He's not trying to express. He's not trying to let me express myself. Like, there's things that you value as a woman, and you take that value and show your value to him as the man. Like, because that's what let a lot of things occur with older relationships. The reason why those lasted for so long. It's a reciprocal thing. It's a regenerative thing too. Like, it's not just a one-sided situation. So, like Tupac said one thing that's very deep. He said that you took the spark, but there was no charge from that spark. That's the curse. That's what Tupac said. And I believe in that. So when people have at-will relationships with the gal, you don't take on a man's light. You don't take on his spark. Therefore, there's no charge, and you charge off Well, not to speak curses on anybody, but I don't think the curse falls on him. He didn't leave, you left. So the curse ain't on him, if you know what I mean. So for the guy that acts this way, that means you didn't have no spark or light to begin with. You came there dark. You probably came off like as if you were like light. Maybe you did come off dark because some gals do like a guy that's dark and that's toxic. But she realized she had to look on the brighter side of things, or she realized that this is only going to get darker. So at will type of relationships only get darker. People that constantly leave people, no matter how you want to put it, they only get darker. Like these people only get darker because they weren't in it to begin with. The thing is, people have this at will mindset about a relationship, but they weren't willing to give it a shot. They weren't willing to give it a chance. And that's why it didn't last long. And yet these be the same type of people complaining about long-term relationships. You're not the type to stay in it for the long term. But thanks a million.